Well, I want to work in his office because look at that backdrop. His mind works on overdrive, which is why he has so many fascinating, advanced things happening for the Big West Conference. He is a man of innovation, the man of progression, and it is the commissioner of the Big West Conference, Dan Butterly, joins me on the On to Something podcast. I'm Bryan Fenley, a national anchor at Fox Sports Radio. And not only are we going to touch on what Dan is doing right now with the conference, but I'd love to dig into his career and look at his life as a whole and his personality and how all of this has led itself to where he is today. Dan, thank you for doing this, and it's an honor to have you here. First question for you here is, there once was a day when you were a basketball manager at Illinois State. If I were a manager next to you then, and I had the opportunity to meet you, what signs would you give off then that would indicate to me that one day, years later, you would be the commissioner of the Big West Conference?
That's a great question. I think obviously my love for basketball, for one. I mean, I became the head basketball manager at Illinois State when Bob Bender became the head coach. He had just become the head coach. And I indicated that, hey, I'd be interested in becoming a statistician. Sent a letter over there. They sent a letter back to me a couple of days later, said, hey, if you want to talk to us, we'd love to talk to you. Come in as soon as you get on campus. Came into the office the second day on campus. They interviewed me for over 2 hours. Boy, I'm like, I just want to be a statistician. I just want to get in the games for free. What are you doing? They told me at the end of the interview that, hey, we were looking for a head basketball manager, somebody that can manage a staff of 8 managers and travel with a team, that type of stuff. And I was floored in many ways. And they said, we're going to talk to a couple of the people, but we'll give you a call. Well, I literally walked back to my dorm, and within 15 minutes, my phone was ringing, and I got offered the position. So I think with Coach Bender, with Coach Morris, Billy King, Ray Giacoletti, everybody that was on that great staff at Illinois State would tell you I was the guy that would show up an hour before practice, stay an hour after practice, would do whatever needs to get done for the success of the team. And I think that's what I bring to the Big West and our member institutions as well.
As far as you being so progressive and innovative, and this is something that you have a reputation of going back to your days at the Mountain West and before, when was the first time that you remember thinking of something that could really enhance the sport, enhance sports in general, where you found yourself ahead of the game with the way in which you were perceiving things, in perhaps an idea, a concept, an invention, a technology, where you first said, look, part of my MO here is that I'm thinking a couple of steps in advance of those around me?
Well, I think it was probably sometime in college or right after college. My college roommate at the time was one of my best friends from high school. We're still best friends. We're godparents to each of our kids. We talked about having some kind of instead of the whiteboard with a marker, or chalkboard with a marker for the coaches, we talked about video technology and coaches to be able to put the pre-program their plays in there and being able to adjust on the fly on a video tablet. So we were talking about technology and advances in the sport of college basketball back then. But I think anybody that literally sits there in the chair watching a game thinking, boy, this game would be better if you did this. That's where the innovators come into. And I'll tell you, it's crazy that Brian Leslie and I came up with that idea years ago, never implemented it, but now it's happening. Tech on the bench is an opportunity now.
How many ideas have come into your mind like that when you've been knowing that you live in Southern California and traffic is certainly all around us now as it comes back? How many ideas came from you sitting in traffic over all of these years?
It's crazy the number of times. I mean, when I first started out in St. Louis, I'd literally leave the house at 5:30 in the morning to try to beat traffic, 30-minute traffic in St. Louis. And those were the times that you're literally thinking, how can I make the Missouri Valley better? How can I make our basketball championships better? How can I make the student athlete experience better? Our gift programs better? You're always thinking. And those are the times that, unfortunately, Brian, those are also the times that you want to make some phone calls. And you look at your watch, boy, I can't call somebody at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, to come up with this idea. So your day gets going, and sometimes it delays a few days getting in touch with a person that you could say, hey, I've got this idea. What do you think? And I think those are the times that, it's crazy the times that, whether you're, trying to wake up in the morning in your shower or driving and listening to the radio or hearing a great song, it's like, boy, this would be a great idea. Let's see if we can find somebody to partner with us on that.
So when does Dan's mind take a break, if at all? Any point do you allow yourself to relax a little bit or to not engage in that, or is that even possible?
It's crazy. when I was at the Mountain West, I really got in a rhythm. I knew exactly when my vacation time could hit and all this other stuff. You get the schedule done. Once you got the basketball schedule done, you can kind of take a break. And I'd always go to Disney World or Disney Cruise or do something Disney with my family, just to experience something outside of sports, just to get in that land where imagination and creativity really runs wild in the Disney enterprise. And I've always found creativity in Disney type stuff. But since I've come in the Big West, it hasn't stopped. I mean, there's just so many things that can and will be done here at the Big West. We've been announcing new initiatives every week. The whole goal was to come out of this pandemic bigger, stronger, faster conference, more well known. And I think now we're really starting to unveil some of these things that we've been doing, and get excited to be doing that. But no, I'll literally wake up in the middle of the night, a few hours of sleep that I'm getting right now, and start thinking again about, okay, what's the day going to bring? Who can I call? And I've got a number of different entrepreneurs and people that are calling, throwing opportunities at us that I wish we could fund all of them, but we got to pick and choose what we've got with the resources we've got and try to advance the Big West.
All these characteristics are all translating to the success you are having and will have in the conference. Now, you recently announced that, and you're pumped about this deal you have with ESPN Plus. What was it like putting that together, and how do you foresee this in what it would look like in this upcoming calendar academic year?
No, I couldn't be more excited about it. It provides a number of opportunities for the Big West. In the past 8 to 9 years, the Big West has rolled a production truck and a trailer to one of our campus sites, set up all day, produced a game, maybe went over and did a game the next day someplace else type thing. And they produce 60 games a year at a very significant expense to the Big West and the membership to be able to do that. And to be able to do what we did at my time at the Mountain West, where we went from rolling a production truck out to providing our institutions the opportunity to produce as many games, as many events as they want, whether it's coaches shows or if the president comes and speaks on campus, they can produce that now and do those type of things. To be an innovator and really get our institutions in that same space that many other conferences are at is exciting. We're going to be able to, as I said, a tenfold number of games that we're going to be able to produce. And I've got some institutions that are saying, hey, we're going to produce maybe 600 events on our own per year through this package. So it's really exciting to provide them the means and the medium to be able to do it. To be able to tell the stories of our student athletes was a big mission for mine coming on board here at the Big West. I think ESPN, the Disney family, and ESPN Plus are going to really allow us to break open that vault a little bit and really tell these great stories of our student athletes. I mean, so many people know college sports as men's basketball and football, but in the Big West, we've got water polo, we've got men's national championships in men's volleyball, 3 consecutive years of men's national championships in men's volleyball. I mean, sports that people in the Midwest may not be following that we're highly successful at.
Speaking of telling stories, and one story I wanted to ask you about, and this is sort of a 180 from what you were just talking about, but someone who has really been a huge part of you and who you've become and your view on life is your cousin, Harold Stevens. And this is someone who you talked about having great memories with, and he was someone who served our country. And I would love for you to describe what it was like when he was on this earth and being able to know him and his sacrifice and how that affects you in your everyday life.
I think about Harry often. I mean, he's just an unbelievable man. I was so young when Harry went off to serve in the Air Force, and he made a career serving out of the Air Force, and he was killed in action. And I think of Harry often. I think I posted on my Facebook page and my Twitter feed as well on Memorial Day. I try to think of him every year and recognize him every year for what he did for his country. But I remember riding in his 1976 silver Stingray Corvette that he had. It was the last time I had with him, and we lived in the farm country of Illinois. And Harry took me out in his 2-seater and took the tops off, and I think we set NASCAR speed records on the backcountry roads in that Corvette. I guarantee you, we were able to probably fly in that car. And he told me he was, he had a lot of training, a lot of Secret Service type training and those type of things. I think one of the quotes that rings in my head was, Dan, I can roll a car and get out of it in 8 seconds. You want to give it a try? And I'm like, no, I definitely don't go. I don't want to try that. Understanding I'm still a teenager at that point, or a young teenager at that point. So, Harry is in my mind many, many times throughout the year, and love the family, and just again, think of him often for his service and sacrifice.
Dan Butterly is with us, commissioner of the Big West Conference. I'm Bryan Fenley, an anchor at Fox Sports Radio. Alongside Harry, Why do you do what you do, and who do you do it for? When you think about what you're doing in this life, when you think about what you're doing in this career, your drive, your persistence, your willingness to succeed.
It's a great question, Brian. One I've probably never even thought of, but I've always been a servant leader. I've always been one that I'm not worried about me being out in front. I don't need this ugly head, on newspapers or TV, those type of things. I mean, I'm in it for our student athletes and their experience. I mean, when I was the basketball manager at Illinois State, I mean, what I did was for the success of our team, our players, try to put them in the best position I could. I didn't get to play. We won a championship my first year. We were 5-23 the next year, and then the next year we won the Missouri Valley regular season title. Nothing I could do could change a win or loss, but anything I could do to help them be better is what I wanted to try to do. Same with our coaching staff. Anything that they needed, any responsibility they needed me to take on, I would take it. And that's kind of been the premise of my career. When I started at the Missouri Valley as an intern, I literally was taking on roles. I called myself a garbage man. Hey, if you don't want to do that, I'll do it. Hey, if you don't want to go to that championship, I'll do that championship. I'd love to have that experience. And so I've really taken on that as a servant leader in many ways. And now in this role, the thing I look at most is what can I do for our member institutions, but mainly what can I do for our student athletes to make their experience in college athletics the best that it can be, because some of the greatest memories you have are in college, and their time is spent on the field of play or on the court of play or training or in the medical room or in class. They don't get to experience college, fraternity and sorority parties maybe. They don't have that similar college life, but the experience you can have in college athletics is just as good, as not better. And my goal is to try to elevate that experience.
Looking at all that experience you've had in college athletics, from working with different conferences to even going back to you being a manager for Illinois State on the basketball team, what is a story in particular, specifically, one in which dealing with a student athlete, where that student athlete to this day has left an indelible impact on you from something he or she overcome, that they moved you in a way, inspired you in a way that you still can recall to this day, and is certainly one of the more gratifying, rewarding moments of your career, or what you've seen over the course of your life?
Well, there's so many, and it could go from every year of every year of my career. I could probably think of a student athlete. I mean, I go back to my years at Illinois State. Again, we won the Missouri Valley title my first year with the program. Second year of the program, we lost a lot of seniors from the first year. So the second year, Scott Fowler was a player on our team that was going to be the leader of our team. He was really the only one of two starters that were coming back, and we were on our last 5 to 10 minutes of practice before going to Dayton to play Dayton in the first game of the season on ESPN. Dan Patrick's calling the game. I mean, when Dan Patrick was calling play-by-play at the time for ESPN, and 5 minutes to go before practice, Scott goes down and screams, and he tears his knee ligaments, and he's done for the season. And it's just all of a sudden your season. You remember the moment the season started to go the way it went. Again, we finished 5-23. One of the games we won by forfeit. So 4 of the games we actually played, one of the games was a forfeit win. So it just shows the struggles that we had, the adversity that we had to deal with that year, and how to deal with adversity was really what I learned during that season. But Scott going down and seeing the persistence of Scott, and at the time, Brian, it wasn't the technologies we have now that an ACL tear, you could come back from that in 4 or 5 months. It was a full year, full cast, full everything. And to see what Scott went through to come back the next season, the struggles that he had that year of being off, to come back that season and we win the Missouri Valley title that third season I was with the program. I mean, those are the motivations that I go through. Those are the things that I remember, the student athlete stories and things that happen, things that happen in the locker room, behind the scenes, and those type of things. Scott was a leader. He was the first year, he was the second year going through rehab, and led our team to the Missouri Valley title that year. But again, just so many great stories. Even this year at the Big West, my time at the Mountain West, so many great stories of student athletes that have had an impact on my life.
Speaking of adversity, when that attention goes upon you and what you've had to overcome, what is the hardest thing over your career in the sports industry that you to this day can say, wow, I got through that. Wow, that was a testing moment, but I made it through. And now I have an experience that will help me for the rest of my life?
Yeah, there's a lot of those in college athletics. As you get kicked and you get thrown down many times. You just got to pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and start all over again, as that song goes. But literally, I would think probably, one of the things that really impacted me was conference realignment back in the early 2010s. I'm on vacation with my wife and daughter in San Diego, and really just visiting a couple of Mountain West towns at the time. And I find out that University of Utah is leaving the Mountain West while I'm in, Coronado Island on the beach, just spending time with my wife and daughter. And then all of a sudden, everything starts to spiral. You see Colorado leave for the Pac-12, and BYU decides. So, I mean, all these schools that you were working with, all these friendships that you've established, to feel like, wow, what did we do wrong that they want to leave us versus going to someplace else? And you got to realize that it's not personal. It's really about business. College athletics is a business as much as it is about education. There's also a business side to it that you've got to manage. So it really comes down to, as I've told staff at the Mountain West at the time, they're leaving. They've made that decision, but they're still a member institution in the conference. So treat them as their member institution. Don't burn any bridges. It's a small world in this conference world, in the institutions world, the college sports world. You never know when you're going to work with that institution again or those people again in many ways, because people leave their jobs, they come around and those type of things. So that's always been a mantra. The relationships, as I tell students, and I mentor a lot of students, particularly with the Ohio U program that I'm a graduate with. I talk to Ohio U students a lot. The business is really 90% of who you know and the relationships you establish as much as it is what you know. I mean, it's really what you know is really what you've learned out of college and what you've learned every day moving forward in this career. And like I said, there's a lot of times that you get kicked down. There's things that, social media, is an immediate way to respond to something that you have an issue with or concern with, or it's just a way to start a conversation. And it's those are things that when you post a new ESPN agreement, you're going to see some negative feedback, some positive feedback. You just got to do what's best for your organization, what's best for your student athletes, what's best for your membership, versus trying to appease everybody.
When you think about that, like you said, you have to try to appease as many people as you can, but knowing this, it's impossible because there's always going to be those that are going to be naysayers. No matter what you do, no matter what move you make, as far as you being a commissioner, as far as what you've done throughout all of your prior experiences at other conferences. But how do you sit with yourself and say, look, I know no matter what, I did the right thing, and where you don't allow yourself to go into that other headspace, but that you sit with the fact that, like, I'm doing the best thing that I'm doing that I know is working for me, and being okay with that. How do you get into that mental headspace, even if, like you said, other people are pulling you in different directions and you feel like it's impossible for everybody to be in favor of what you're doing?
Yeah, Brian, it's a great question because you're almost never going to get 100% on any issue. And the thing is, you can't take it personally. That's one thing I've learned throughout my career as well. As much as you may believe in something and you think it may be best for your overall conference, for your institution, for whoever you're trying to propose something to, not everybody's going to agree. So you've got to do what's best for everybody. And I try to prepare myself, educate myself, see both sides of the issues, research, use the data and analytics as much as possible, see the good and bad in both sides, and be fully prepared when you come to present that information, whether it's to your senior women administrator group, your ADs, your faculty reps, your presidents and chancellors, or your coaches. I mean, these are all very well-educated people, very passionate about what they do, and can be very passionate about for or against an item that you're bringing forth. And you just got to be able to see all sides of it and ultimately collectively try to come to a decision that works best for the collective whole, not just for one institution.
A lot of great decisions you've made, and like you said, you sort of are forecasting some nice developments that are going to be announced here with the conference, and so I'm excited to see what those are. We're joined by Commissioner of the Big West Conference, Dan Butterly. I'm Bryan Fenley, a national anchor at Fox Sports Radio. I want to leave you with this, Dan, my final question, and that is, there are only a select number of commissioners out there, and I know you're not one to boast, but what do you do perhaps better than any of the other ones?
That's a great question, because there are some amazing commissioners out there, and I was able to attend my first in-person CCA, the Collegiate Commissioners Association meeting in Rosemont at the Big Ten offices last month. So really, I mean, I think when I first started, we were having 8 different commissioner meetings a week, whether it was the full commissioner group, the CCA 22, which is the non-FBS commissioners, the BC 11, the basketball conferences, the 11 conferences without football. During the pandemic, we were meeting so frequently, talking amongst each other, what's everybody doing, and sharing ideas. There's amazing people at every conference. So to say that I'm better at X versus why is a challenge, because there's a lot of them that are smarter than I am. But I think the thing I do bring to this position is I'm a servant leader. I am a blue collar person from a blue collar family. I am not going to ask any member of my staff to do something that I wouldn't do personally, and I'm going to do everything I can to work hard on behalf of our member institutions, particularly on behalf of our student athletes. And I think that's what you're going to see here is a very student athlete centric focus on what we're doing to improve the Big West and how we improve their experience. So I think that's one thing that sets me apart a little bit different than maybe some other people out there.
And accompanying that is the fact that you have this insatiable desire to learn and to grow and to be a student and to always be open to ideas. And all of these things have been the recipe for so much growth in the conference in your short span already at the Big West. And we'll continue to see more of that. I'm so excited to watch everything unfold for you. And I hope that one day we get to meet in person. Dan Butterly, Commissioner at the Big West Conference. I'm Bryan Fenley, national anchor at Fox Sports Radio. It was fun, Dan, to dig into your career a little bit, learn more about your personality. I know you get a lot of questions asked about what you do as far as your job, and we got into that, but also got a little bit more of a backstory to who you are as a human being. I appreciate you, Dan, so much.
No, Bryan, I truly enjoyed it.